Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of my videos. Today we've got part 5 of solving puzzles in the woodpecker method. So we are on part number 5 here. We're on exercise 24. This one's a toughie, another toughie. Essentially, the key kind of theme of this puzzle is looking at the amount of potential squares that this rook can go to. So there's not really a whole lot of squares it can go to, and with that in mind, there's really quite a clever tactic in this one. Essentially, we want to look at the fact that this knight can come to a4, and if this pawn captures, then we capture here with the queen. And if for whatever reason this rook moves, suddenly we've got a lovely fork here with both the rook and the pawn on e5. So it's quite a tough puzzle, this one. A lot of our brute forces methods don't really work. We kind of have to go into sort of more of the imbalances of the position to try and work this one out. And one of the factors is just the poor positioning of this rook. Our minor piece, I think, certainly outflanks this rook in this position. So anyway, that's how you solve this one. To be fair, when I first had this puzzle and the first time I ever did it, I think I failed it 3 or 4 times. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one, but it's doable. It's doable, but it takes a long time to solve it. Okay, so that is puzzle number 1, and hopefully it will load up the next puzzle to solve, if it's going to let me now. Come on now. Let me just reload it 1 second. Apologies for this. Sometimes it does this on this book. I think. Okay, right. So on number 25. So when you sometimes refresh it, it works. So, okay. So, all right. First thing I've noticed in this position, I'm looking at this king. It looks very, very precariously placed. So there's got to be some sort of tactics revolving that, and then we've got some very good active and lively pieces here as well. So that would be my main focus. We've got a pawn here as well, and already I'm starting to see with the captures, if this rook were to capture this, after this goes here, that's now actually given up a really nice square for us, this f3 square, and you'll see if this queen came to that square, it would be forking that. So that's the solution to this one, and after that we can capture on there. Okay, right. 26 I tend to struggle on because I always get the ordering a bit weird on this one. I don't know why. But essentially, it's all to do with this queen here. Essentially, it's not got many squares it can go to. So if we just set up a simple threat here, this as I said, this queen hasn't really got a whole lot of squares it can go to. It can go back to somewhere like h8, but then the knight here falls very, very quickly. And that's kind of it, really. That's kind of the whole puzzle. I don't really know if you didn't know if you really expected much more than that. The problem is obviously knight can capture here, but we can still jump in the square. We're still forking the queen and the knight, so we're still winning. Okay, so that is that. Okay, this one is just a simple capture one. There's no checks in this one except for this bishop. That's really, so if I'm looking at all the captures, one of the captures that really takes my fancy is if you capture with the queen here. This forces the queen to come here, which now relinquishes defense of f6. And as soon as that happens, the knight can jump in. That comes in with a check and also forks the knight, the queen there. So that's the solution. So with this one, trying to remember. Okay, so this one's around basically king safety more than anything. So if you just look at this only check, there is also this check, but again, not really much happens there. But with this one here, if you captured this pawn, after king captures, you can swoop in with the other rook with check, and there's actually, the king can only go back and forth between these two files because we basically control quite a lot of squares around there. We create like a barrier, so it's sort of forced to the side. And as soon as that happens, we can jump in with a beautiful lawnmower mates, as I like to call it. So there is, I mean, obviously this is pretty good too, don't get me wrong, but it's not winning. I mean, this is the checkmate, that's the thing. And actually, if we did that, we'd still be down a pawn. So that's why this is, obviously checkmate is much more better than just winning the bishop. So we captured here. Make sure I get the right one. I've made a mistake in the past. I moved the other queen, the queen here, and went, oh, no, that doesn't work at all. So yeah, just be careful of that. So that's the checkmate there. There's not really much anything white can do to parry that because of that lovely barrier we've got here with the pawns, and obviously the queen being there as well, defending that square. All right, puzzle number 29. Right, let's try and remember this one. Okay, so this is all to do with the fact that in this position we have a lovely passed pawn here, which is just screaming down this thing. But I mean, would ideally love to move this pawn here in our dream scenario and move it here, but there's a king in the way firstly, and as soon as we move this, well, this rook will capture this queen. So we've got to find a way of shifting this these guys one space away so we can move that down. And the way we can do that is quite a nice well, there's actually quite a nice way of delivering the mate in this position. I was just looking at this, actually it doesn't work because of that. So actually we can do that, and that's a forced move. And whatever he does, he has to take with the rook. If he takes with the bishop, this is actually checkmate in one after this, because the knight protects the pawn, and the king is being under a discovered checkmate with the rook. So that's why we have to go to this square to deliver it. Now the king moves along. Oh, had my phone go off there, so that was a bit distracting. So, okay, right. So here, you'll see here that now this pawn defends the square, we can move in with the rook, and that is checkmate. Quite a nice little puzzle, that one. And I think we've had a same problem. Here we go, that works now. Alright, so let's go to puzzle number 30. This one's quite a simple one. If we look at the checks, we can see that there's a lovely check here, and as soon as we've done that, that uncovers this lovely, lovely threat on the queen. So that's the solution. Not really much more to it than that. We're up an exchange in this position now. Okay, number 30. So with this one, there's quite a lot of things going on, but as there's no checks, we move on to the captures, and there's a very nice capture here. After we take this knight, after this pawn moves, we can move this pawn forward, and you see here it creates a lovely pawn fork on the king and the rook. So quite a nice tactic that enabled us to solve that. Okay, right. Okay, so this one's quite a tough one. There isn't actually any real obvious tactics in this one. There's no really good checks. We can't take this bishop as the queen captures back, so that not really works. And there's a bit of a problem for us. As soon as we move this queen off here, we've got this checkmate in one, and that's really where the tactic, we have to defend really accurately here, as we're really under the cosh. So other captures that we can do, well, the other things to notice in this position is we've got these two pawns here, so if everything came off, this would win for us. We'd remove one of these pawns captures, whatever. We win this. This is an easily won endgame. So with that in mind, the correct move is this. So after we take this pawn, this now threatens the queen, And as soon as the queen moves up, takes the rook, we take the bishop off. And although we're actually down, we've lost a pawn here, that's absolutely fine. In this queen endgame, we should be able to win this. And not only that, when the queen is here, we've actually stopped quite a lot of different checks that the queen can put towards us. So after a few, as I say, after a few exchanges, this comes with a check. If the king moves, we then capture this pawn, and we've got these two pawns here. And then, just as a rule of thumb, queen and pawn endgames, generally it's whoever's got better quality pawns who wins queen versus queen endgames. So whoever's got the best pace pawns tends to win, and we've got these lovely pass pawns. It's connected pass pawns, which is even better. We should be easily able to win this position. Okay, so that's the whole idea with that one. It's a tough one, but it's a very good defensive technique to know about. And as I say, we're now going to be able to hopefully win this after this king moves. Alright, so that's it for that. We finish on Jose Rule Capablanca. We're going to be going through the rest of these very soon. Take care, bye.